All right, good morning. Welcome to Prairie Lakes' Future Ready series. This is the first of four webinars. We have with us today Kristy Volesky from the Iowa Department of Education. She is the work-based learning consultant. So Kristy, I'll let you do any further introduction and take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Tabitha. Yeah, my name is Kristy Volesky. I'm at the Iowa Department of Education, overseeing work-based learning for schools and colleges across the state. And then as part of that, providing assistance to move programs forward so we can continue to increase quality work-based learning across the state. So I do have a PowerPoint presentation today, and then I have a handout to connect. So we'll go ahead and get that into the notes. So anybody who's not here would have access to that. So all right, we'll go ahead and get started. And I know that in general, this was presented as just kind of an overview, and then we'll have some time for questions that if you have clarifying questions that you would like answered. So let's get started. So after this presentation, hopefully you have a solid understanding of work-based learning, specifically looking at what is and what is not work-based learning, because that continues to be an important component moving forward, that everyone understand that not everything is work-based learning, but being able to identify what makes up work-based learning so we can make those key changes. Understand what those key requirements are for districts when it comes to work-based learning. There's a lot of confusion out there. Work-based learning is a buzzword, but making sure we understand currently what is expected. And then the last are different steps that you can take for your district in this conversation. We're talking about schools and school districts. So what do you need to do to take those next steps and meeting you where you're at? So we have a differentiation type of tool that can help guide those internal district decisions. So the first thing is understanding what work-based learning is and making sure that we're building quality, sustainable work-based learning. We say that there's three important components. The first one being there needs to be some sort of academic preparation. We can have just a field experience or field trip type of experience. That's not really work-based learning. So if we take the time to do something prior to the experience, there'll be more depth for students engaging in this work or in this experience so that they can really understand those connections. There needs to be a partnership between education and industry. Meaning if there's no industry engaged, that's just a great educational learning activity or experience, but it's not work-based learning. If it is only industry and there's no educational component or interaction, then that's just called work. So in order for it to be work-based learning, we needed to have both education and industry working together. And then finally, that academic follow-up. We're doing something to basically ensure that we're reflecting and building up that reflection piece for students. Not only is that a really good skill to develop into the professional career, but it's a requirement for the district career and academic plans. So if we incorporate this as a standard requirement, not only does it engage student learning, but then we know every work-based learning experience that occurs at the school can be counted towards that district career and academic plan when we collect that data. So for example, the latest example I like to use, and I've talked to Brandon Patterson, so he knows I'm using it, is the big Build My Future event that's held at the state fairgrounds. That's a great experience. It's a hands-on learning experience for students. Students can attend that and they can gain something from that experience. But let's take again these three components. What if before students participated in that, they learned about first impressions, how to properly shake hands, how to engage with a professional and to demonstrate interest? What if students looked up maybe two of the organizations that are going to be present there to learn what not only that company offers for employment opportunities, but maybe a little bit more to understand? Then when students actually go to this event, they can make a great first impression. They may be making a connection for a future work-based learning experience, whether that's maybe a job shadow down the line, or maybe it's an internship or connection with an apprenticeship, or it may be just something to build up a network too, and maybe it's 2, 4, 5 years down the line as a potential employer. The last part here, well, partnership between education and industry, having not only the educator and the chaperones attend alongside their students. They can provide that support that's necessary, but making sure we're building out that quality experience. And Brandon includes a lot of people in, related to education to make sure it is that true partnership. And then the last piece is a follow-up. Maybe it's just a simple reflection of what did you like? Of maybe the 2 employers that you had researched ahead of time. What impression did you have when you engaged with them? Or did this change your mind about a particular career? It can be as simple as share with a partner. It could be an exit slip. It could be a little simple 2-question survey on Google form. Like, it doesn't have to be complex, but again, it's incorporating all of those pieces together. And so that's just one example of how to really build out this quality work-based learning experience that really engages and extends student learning. But this is applicable to all of the experiences that we talk about in the continuum. And which, speaking of, on the right here is our work-based learning continuum graphic demonstrating we should be starting with awareness pieces and then moving on through training. It is not just 1 or 2 different types of experiences make up work-based learning. Rather, the full continuum is essential. Just like learning in the classroom, students can learn from listening and observing. They can also learn from interacting and questioning. They can also learn from actually doing with hands-on pieces. So we want to make sure we're demonstrating that in our continuum, that it's still applicable with work-based learning, which in the awareness phase, for example, having a classroom speaker come in and talk. That's an awareness piece. It's not in depth necessarily, but if done correctly, it could be a really engaging and a great learning experience for students. So why do we do work-based learning? And why do we include these 3 components? It ensures students gain a meaningful experience. Think about what I just walked through with the Build My Future. What if you didn't do any preparation or any sort of follow-up? It would be a good experience and the students might walk away with something, but we're not really building it out so that it's an engaging work-based learning experience and doing our part with education. And it provides that structured collaboration and support for students as well. So when it comes to work-based learning expectations at the district level, there's 3 main components. The first one being Perkins 5, which is under CTE. And this is our program quality indicator, meaning we're gathering data on districts on participation levels, and we have percentages that we need to meet as a state when we report it out to the federal level. Each individual district doesn't have a percentage of engagement. However, we are monitoring that to make sure that you have a good participation rate from students in your district. At the same time, we are very thoughtful in identifying what would be counted towards that Perkins 5 component, utilizing Perkins 5, how they defined out work-based learning should be used for this data piece, that sustained industry interactions. So there is a full menu of options to select from, and I will get to where to find that a little bit later on. But again, it's what are we offering to students to really provide that sustained industry interaction? We collect this data through SCED codes, meaning a code is put in on the back end of the course. There's no additional reporting that's required. So it's automated through the regular reporting that's already done. The other one is through CTE program self-studies. That's from House File 2392 several years ago. It's an indicator of a quality program. And it's more than just saying, well, we have a work-based learning coordinator, or we have this option for students. It's really about more than that. What are you doing for the full continuum? Do you have speakers coming in? What are you doing down in middle school? But how is it you're building upon these experiences in the classroom to make those direct connections with industry? And that is already done through our program approval process, which districts engage with once every 5 years. And finally, it's our district career and academic plans. This was newly added to legislation this last spring. So this year will be the first year that we are collecting that information. Erica Wood-Schmitz at the department and I work very closely to make sure there's a true blending of connections so that it appears seamless or seems seamless, that what we do is an intentional piece. So it's easier for that data collection component. So, and she's built that into her templates. So if you're engaged in that work and have questions, she is more than happy to help. And I know that she's been doing a lot of presentations across the state. So these are currently our 3 components or where work-based learning is required. The first 2 are within our career and technical education pieces and our district career and academic plans. Even though those are sent to the regional planning partnerships, this should be encompassing of more than just CTE. This should be all of our 8 through 12. What we're really working on here in our state is how do we move this work forward? So how do we expand quality work-based learning? Because you're probably feeling, I'm getting this from everywhere. Everybody wants to do this, or they are telling me we should be doing that. So how do we kind of quiet this and make this step simple? And so I will connect you with a handout that will make this very simple. It's like a 3-step piece. The first piece in this year I'm really pushing for districts is to take inventory of your current work-based learning. This is not only your work-based learning courses, which we have some guidance outlining exactly what those are, how they should be coded, and in some cases a key term to be included so that we'll be able to collect that data. But it's also this idea of embedding work-based learning experiences. So the difference between embedding and a work-based learning course, a work-based learning course, the entire course is built around that experience, engaging with industry or doing that. That's the entire makeup of the course. An embedded experience is where it's not the entire makeup, but it's used as an enhancement tool. So maybe you incorporate mock interviews with industry as part of one of those courses. That would be an embedded work-based learning experience. You're talking about interviewing skills, you're talking about professional documentation, and then you put it into place where students have to engage in those mock interviews with industry and receive that feedback. So taking a look at where do we have those embedded experiences? And one of the best ways to approach this is really just to figure out what's happening, let people use whatever terminology that they have, but just to gather a good insight of what is happening and where. Because what we're hearing back from the field is when districts start to do this, they realize there's duplication of the same type of experience in multiple places, but they're not always lining up with same expectations and they're not even meeting all of the students. So getting a good handle, again, where is this happening is really the first step. Once you have a handle on where it's happening, really taking a look at those 3 essential elements and making sure they're present in each one of those work-based learning courses, as well as those embedded experiences. It's not meant to penalize, it's not meant to make anyone feel bad, but really just how do we enhance what we're currently doing if it's not quite including all those components. And then the last one is really meant to meet you where you're at. And I have a little sample picture in the bottom right-hand corner here, where we have a work-based learning self-assessment tool. This is designed to be done at the K-12 level in your district career and academic planning teams, to just go through a series of topics and questions to reflect on as a team to help you decide what's the next step that makes sense for your district. And the reason why Eric and I have really pushed this to be done in our district career and academic planning team is a lot of the questions are making sure that we're meeting those components that were reflected in the district career and academic plan, as well as this is just better to do as a team. If there's only one person in a district doing this work, when they move on, what happens? Do those experiences stop? Well, hopefully not. If there's a team approach to understanding what is happening, where it's happening, ensuring that it's quality, there's a greater chance that it will be sustainable over time despite staffing changes. So again, the work-based learning self-assessment tool, it's not required, but that is something that we're encouraging districts to take a look at to decide, what do we want to focus in on next? Maybe we need to take a look at our data. Maybe we need to look at expanding for other experiences, but that's to help those guide those local decisions. And that's really all I have presented, because I want to make sure we have enough time. And I know it can be a little overwhelming for information, but I will grab, I have a 3-step process. Let me stop sharing here. that 3-step process with all the links directly on there. So it'll make it easier to figure out if we're really on step 1, where do I need to go next? As well as that self-assessment tool is on there as well. So I'll go ahead and grab that. Do you guys have any questions for me?
You had also shared with me the latest work-based learning guide.
Mhm.
So I feel like that's a link that we want to make sure that people have too.
Yep. That is actually included in this document to
Okay.
reference the guide. And so the guide is set up to be that really good like structure to help understand the different components in the continuum, but as well as it links you directly to more information if you want to do that and you just don't know how to do it. Like you just don't know how to get started. So there's toolkits for each one of those components that you can reference.
Sure. All right, guys, any other questions before I stop our recording quick?
Yeah, I had a question about the, you had spoken about the partnership between education and industry. Could you elaborate some more on that? Because I think I was kind of not seeing it in the big picture here as much.
Right. So that's really making sure that both education and industry are engaged in the experience. So for example, if we have a hypothetical project that students do, and that's as much as it happens, like that's a great project and great learning experience, but there's no industry engagement. So it's not work-based learning. If we just send kids out to work, that's just work. That's not work-based learning. So making sure that we're preparing students, we're supporting it throughout the experience, we're doing some follow-up pieces like that would be work-based learning then, because we're engaged in the process and making sure it's a collaboration piece. Generally speaking, though, when I'm talking about that second component, when I'm talking to education people, it's understanding that industry needs to be involved. And when I'm talking to industry, understanding that education needs to be involved as that key missing component of making sure that the stuff that we're calling work-based learning is actually work-based learning.
Yeah, I can see where that would be kind of difficult for people to understand a little bit too, because I see that, you know, one of those components is available, but they're not working together. That's what I most typically see in the school. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Kristy, I'm going to stop our recording. Thank you so much for sharing your information with us today. Truly appreciate your time and your expertise. And I'm going to make sure that we share, keep this. Team, can you help me make sure that this link that Kristy shared gets on our resources doc? Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Kristy.